Alexandra didn't even notice the cold touch on my shoulder as I began my descent down the grand aisle of St. Ignatius Cathedral. But I did. I felt the instantaneous, visceral tremor in her fingers, the kind of unstable vibration that precedes utter collapse when all power and control are violently snatched away. Her meticulously crafted smile shattered, her perfectly poised jaw dropped, and in that agonizing, split-second collision of realization and despair, I knew she finally understood the depth of my quiet, calculated move. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a reckoning. But I'm moving far too quickly. To understand that moment, we must return to the beginning. The first time I encountered Alexandra Hawthorne, my fiancé Alexander's mother, she met me with a curated blend of Venetian pearls and subtle, acidic poison. "A pretty little thing," she chirped, the tone as sharp as a concealed knife, describing me the way one might describe an antique porcelain vase they intend to swiftly relocate out of any potential sunlight. Alexander, bless his oblivious heart, genuinely thought she was charming, a pillar of sophisticated manners. I, however, saw a chess master cloaked in haute couture, perpetually calculating her next 3 moves. Still, I wanted her approval. I craved validation from this woman who represented the old money and flawless society I was marrying into. That, I now know, was my first and most profound error. Alexandra had meticulously constructed her entire existence upon the pillars of absolute control. Control over her son's career path, control over the family's public image, and, most aggressively, control over anyone who dared to set foot into her tightly managed estate of iron gates and silk-lined judgments. I had naively believed that the genuine, profound love Alexander and I shared could somehow soften her granite exterior. It did not. It only provided her with another, more potent weakness, me, to mercilessly exploit. The campaign started insidiously small, like a slow drip of corrosive acid. She would accidentally forget to include me in important family dinners at their summer home in Newport. She would, with painful politeness, correct my pronunciation of French wines or subtly adjust my posture during formal teas. She always rationalized these acts to Alexander. "Darling, I'm only trying to elevate her, to help her fit in." I forced myself to smile, convincing myself it was merely the awkward tension of a new mother-in-law adjusting to a new dynamic. The classic, tiresome adjustment phase. Then came the monumental, defining challenge, the wedding plans. We were organizing a large event at a breathtaking venue on the coast of Carmel. Alexandra, volunteering with an overzealous enthusiasm, offered to handle the critical dress fittings. "Since Alexander is so preoccupied with the merger, this falls to me," she declared, her eyes glittering like a handful of newly polished glass shards. "It's a sacred family tradition." Despite a small, cold knot of warning tightening in my stomach, I agreed. Why wouldn't I? A part of me still foolishly hoped this shared task might forge a genuine connection. This was just another layer of the psychological trap she was laying. She was masterful at making her cruelest manipulations feel like genuine acts of generosity. The calculated strike came the week before the meticulously planned ceremony. Alexandra called, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy, as cloyingly sweet as expired honey. "My dearest, the boutique has committed a grave error and somehow misplaced your exquisite gown. Utter disaster. But fret not, I have anticipated such a crisis and already secured the perfect, traditional solution." The next day, I arrived at her private sunroom, which smelled oppressively of lemon polish and old ambition. There, she dramatically unveiled it, a relic, a century-old, stiffly yellowed, moth-eaten gown that faintly smelled of damp linen and deep-seated dust. "This," she announced with a flourish, "belonged to Alexander's great-grandmother, the formidable Lady Esmeralda. Alexander simply adores family heirlooms. He will adore you in it." I stared, transfixed, first at the decaying dress and then at the sharp, triumphant smirk playing on her lips. "You are truly serious about this," I managed, the air catching in my lungs. Her chin lifted, imperious and resolute. "Alexander, dear girl, trusts my highly refined taste far more than he trusts yours in matters of legacy and appearance. That single line, delivered with the precise cruelty of a razor-sharp whisper, cut deeper into my pride and my hope than any shouted argument ever could. It was not just an attack on my taste. It was an attempt to completely erase my identity from my own wedding. Yet I did not argue. I did not betray my fury by raising my voice or showing any distress. I simply met her gaze, held my resolve, and smiled, a calm, unnerving smile. "Of course, Alexandra," I murmured, my voice perfectly level. "It would be an honor to wear a piece of the Hawthorne lineage. I will absolutely wear it." And that precise, quiet surrender was the exact instant she comprehensively and irrevocably lost the battle. She thought she had won. She mistook my silence for defeat. She had, in fact, given me the ultimate weapon. The night before the wedding, I sat silently on the edge of my opulent hotel bed, the hideous, decaying relic of a dress pulled around me. I meticulously replayed every single, subtle cruelty she had masked with polite manners and expensive pearls. The persistent, insidious way she had been systematically pulling Alexander's foundational loyalty away from me, one strained, fragile thread at a time. I considered the predictable routes, a confrontation, a public exposure of her tyranny. But that would have made me the aggressor, me the small, predictable, emotional one. I was not playing her game anymore. I planned instead. I placed a discreet call to the Etoile Couture boutique. As I suspected, my real, magnificent gown had not been misplaced. It had been peremptorily rejected. Alexandra had personally called them, spinning a convincing tale that the bride suddenly had a change of heart and decided on a traditional family gown. Fortunately, in my earlier fittings, I had taken the time to befriend the head seamstress, Alara. She met me at the back entrance of the shop well after midnight, visibly nervous, but fundamentally loyal to her craft and to me. We initiated a frenzied, high-stakes operation. Several swift, strategic cuts, a handful of calculated material swaps, and a complete, transformative relayering. I paid her a fortune, easily double the original fee, to guarantee her absolute silence and discretion. And as I imagined the dawning horror on Alexandra's immaculate face, I felt the cold, thrilling satisfaction of a victory already won. The morning of the ceremony, Alexandra was in my bridal suite at the Seabreeze Manor, with the intrusive presence of a queen inspecting her most crucial pawn. "You will thank me for this, my dear," she instructed, her manicured fingers smoothing the brittle, yellowed fabric over my shoulder. "This is what genuine, inherited grace truly looks like." "Yes," I agreed quietly, meeting her gaze in the mirror, my reflection serene. "Grace." I stood there, letting her believe she had secured her triumph, enjoying the last moments of her fleeting control. I permitted her one final, temporary moment of ownership over my appearance. When the massive mahogany doors of St. Ignatius finally swung open and I began my walk, Alexander's face instantly softened into a look of overwhelming devotion. He only had eyes for me. He failed to notice the sudden, paralyzing tension in the air, or the precise moment his mother's confident smile violently imploded when her eyes registered what she was witnessing. Because I was no longer wearing her antique costume, not in the way she intended. I had Alara, the brilliant seamstress, completely reconstruct the garment. She had meticulously taken the precious, irreplaceable lace from Lady Esmeralda's dress and expertly layered it over my original, flawless modern gown. The once yellowed lace fabric had been painstakingly, scientifically cleaned, restored, and brightened until it shimmered with the creamy hue of liquid ivory, now completely repurposed. It was no longer a rotting heirloom used to humiliate me. It was a masterpiece of reconstruction. My art. My design. The collective gasp that rippled through the hundreds of guests when I appeared was the sweetest sound of vindication. The intricate lace shimmered like moonlight on the ocean. The bodice fit like a dream, the skirt floating light as air. It was a perfect, visual contradiction, modern engineering fused with vintage legacy, a creation she could not possibly claim or criticize without exposing her own actions. Alexandra's face, usually so composed, completely drained of all color, turning a sickly pale shade of white. Her precious, untouchable family legacy was now irrefutably integrated into my wedding story, my visual design, and my name. I had taken her ultimate weapon and forged it into my own shield of triumph. The priest, bless his soul, oblivious to the high-stakes war being fought at the altar, promptly began the ceremony. Later, at the magnificent reception held at the Grand Oceanic Ballroom, guests were utterly captivated, constantly complimenting the stunning, innovative dress. Alexandra attempted to smile through painfully clenched teeth, correcting anyone who dared to call the gown original or innovative. "It is an old family piece," she whispered stiffly, desperate to maintain her crumbling hold on the narrative. "Oh, no, Alexandra," I corrected softly, stepping strategically beside her, ensuring my voice carried just far enough to the nearest guests. It was certainly inspired by her family's beautiful gown, but I had it professionally remade, beautifully restored, and entirely reconstructed. It is mine now. Her hand, usually rock-steady, trembled violently around her delicate champagne flute. I thought Alexander should finally see what genuine trust and loyalty truly look like, I added, lowering my voice so the line was meant for her ears alone. "You taught me that lesson, Alexandra." For the first and likely the only time in her life, the formidable matriarch had absolutely no words. Just a profound, devastating silence and the faintest, almost imperceptible crack in her perfect, rigid posture. The queen was temporarily deposed. Much later that evening, Alexander pulled me close on the terrace, gazing out at the lights of Carmel Bay. He confided that he had never, in his entire life, seen his mother so unnaturally quiet. "I truly think she finally respects you," he said, laughing lightly, completely unaware of the battlefield we had just traversed. I simply smiled into the expensive crystal of my wine glass. "Something like that, my love." He failed to notice the small, discreet business card for the Etoile Couture boutique tucked neatly into the folds of Alexandra's elaborate clutch bag. Hidden beneath that was a copy of the itemized invoice, featuring her full, legal name and the clear instruction to reject the original custom gown. By dawn, that evidence, all of it, would be circulating anonymously through the tightly knit social circle she ruled with an iron fist. The online society pages and blogs would erupt, calling it a scandal of poor taste and high treason. I didn't need to completely ruin her. I only needed to wound her pride publicly enough that every single, effusive compliment about my magnificent wedding dress would forever echo in her ears as her own utter, unforgivable humiliation. That calculated moment of triumph was my true, personal vow that day, made not just to Alexander, but profoundly to myself. Never again would I allow anyone, especially not the Queen of Lace Curtains, to rewrite or dictate the terms of my own life story. So tell me, have you ever had to choose between fighting a manipulator or simply outsmarting them? Have you ever had to turn their own weapon, their legacy, their expectations, into your ultimate victory? If this story resonated with you, if you love seeing the quiet underdog turn the tables on the tyrant, then hit that like button, subscribe for more tales of calculated revenge, and let me know in the comments, what was the most satisfying moment of this wedding day for you?